JF Stretford, Paddock, and this is Howson's Brew. And as you may notice, it's Howson's Brew with a difference. There's no Howson. But don't panic, don't need to click off.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, this is because we've got an able substitute, and Alex Baggers is with us as well. And we've also got George Baker, one of the founding members of FC United, who's joined us. Thanks for coming on the show, George. He's going to talk to us a little bit about, obviously, what happened in 2005 with FC United and the Anti-Glazer protest then, and what he makes of what's going on recently with the recent protests, the protests that are planned as well, and just, what is going down? Are we ever going to get rid of the Glazers? What's going on there? And how close did we come in the past as well? So if you've got any questions for George about FC United, about the process in the past, give us a shout. Any questions for me and Baggers, get involved. Hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, and give us your questions as well. George, thanks for coming on. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about because some of our viewers may not know a lot about FC United. They may be a bit confused about what FC United is, what it stands for. Just talk us through, from the beginning, how did FC United come about and who the people sort of involved in it?
Well, it came about, it was first mooted around January 2005 in Red Issue, the sadly now out of print fanzine. It had first been touted around the time of the Murdoch takeover, the idea of it. There'd been word about whether or not a breakaway club could be an option. It started to take root around the time it was pretty obvious that the Glazers were getting a majority shareholding in United. And it had been a culmination of all sorts of things, not just the Glazer takeover, but obviously the sanitisation of the matchday experience, ever-increasing ticket prices, just the general corporate takeover of football. But the idea that United wouldn't be able... the United would be privately owned by a man who's clearly not a football man, by quite a hostile debt leverage takeover. It became too much for a lot of people, and the idea was to show that we're serious, that we won't be turning up as fans if the Glazers take over. The idea of a breakaway club was jotted out in Red Issue. And ever since then, it just gained traction. And when the takeover finally happened in May 2005, the ball got rolling very, very quickly. And it was a steering committee of 10 to 15 people who basically just had to create a football club from scratch, find a ground to play at, find players, find a coach, and find a league to play in. And they had to apply for that league, do a presentation for the league, who of course were understandably sceptical about a project like this, which certainly had never been seen, certainly never in the north of England anyway. So it was completely unprecedented in many ways to form a breakaway club, and the idea was for it to be fan-owned, completely 100% fan-owned, so that it was Glazer-proof, essentially.
Which is, it seems madness now that it even got through in the end, the Glazer thing, and the fact that there were so many United fans against it, but it just let in. I think that the feeling now is that, for me, is that at that time, I think that a lot of people against it were fans of other clubs that were just like, United fans, spoiled United fans that are complaining about more money coming to your club and things like that. I think that was the kind of tone with it all. I was a little bit too young to remember it, but at the same time, going into 2010, it was still the same kind of stuff. You complain about not quite making as much money as everyone else. You're complaining about you not being owned by a billionaire, by someone that's not putting the money in. Whereas I think the feeling around it now is, I think that because of the Super League it wasn't just an effect on Manchester United. It wasn't just that. I think that with a few more fans getting involved and other clubs going, wow, that Glazer takeover in 2005 hasn't just influenced Manchester United Football Club in terms of the fans going to the games, hasn't just influenced Manchester United Football Club in terms of the transfers that we've been able to make, but could now have a trickle-down effect of affecting the whole pyramid of English football. That's the scary thing for me. Did you see that happening then? Did you have that feeling? Was that one of the major things, that it wasn't just about Man United? You were hoping that people would kind of realise it from outside of Manchester United? Of
course, yeah, because we tried saying, this isn't just bad for Man United, this is bad for all of football. And of course that essentially sounds like a typically arrogant Man U fan statement, just to say, it's all about you, isn't it? So we're literally being laughed at by other fans because they saw it as the demise of Man United, like the most successful club of the last 10-15 years. It's hilarious because it'll be less dominance from Manchester United, and they didn't see it as an extremely dangerous thing to do for football as a whole. Like, and we knew that rumours of a European Super League have been around for God knows how long now. Like, coming up to probably 30 years. Like, people have been talking about it for so long. And it's no surprise whatsoever that like American owners, like who've been involved with American sports franchises, were of course going to be at the forefront of something like that. And that's what kind of that's what the Anti-Glazer message was about. Really, it was not just bad for Manchester United; it's bad for the whole of football, and that's what we've seen. And we've got the whole Man U fans creating their own club. What are they going to do? They're all just spoiled TV subscribers from London and the South East. What are they going to do? And no one's going to turn up because it's in Manchester and all that crap. So it's we got all of that, and of course it surprised a lot of people that we ended up being so successful. We three straight promotions as a fan-owned club. Obviously we were getting 2,000 to 3,000 fans every game in leagues where there's only 50 to 100 turning up. We played Salford City back when they were getting 150 people and playing in amber. So it was a good laugh. They had to move it to the Willows, the rugby league stadium, because Moor Lane was just a patch of grass back then, essentially. So it was a great time. But there was a lot of scepticism, and a lot of it completely unfounded, based on perceptions of what we are as United fans.
How hard was it for you, George? Because you're a United fan, and then the Glazers come in, and you're someone who's going to the games, and then you're saying, right, do you know what, I just can't do this anymore. I can't carry on going to Old Trafford or not supporting, but go to these games while these owners are in place. How hard was it for you to walk away from that? And I know you're still obviously a United fan, but to stop going and doing what you're doing and join this club that didn't exist until you got involved. How hard was all that?
It was really difficult at first. For me, I was quite young. I was only 19 at the time, and I didn't have a season ticket. And one of the reasons is how many teenagers could afford a Premier League season ticket, particularly at Manchester United.
Yeah,
of course it is. Yeah. And so, for me to no longer go, from a personal perspective, I was enjoying Old Trafford less and less. I found myself having to go on my own sometimes because I couldn't get 2 tickets, and you could hardly ever get more than 2 tickets. You just and you're getting chubbed 66% of the time, and it was just like, is it really worth it when I can get tickets? And I'm just, I remember one of the last games I went to was Portsmouth home. I think it was in March 2005. And Stand Up If You're Not For Sale was going around Old Trafford. And Stretford End was going for it. But I think I was in the South Stand. Can you imagine how that went down in the South Stand? Standing up in front of people. Sit down. You're standing up to, show your support for the club and to show your opposition to what's going to be a horrible takeover. And there's just people yelling at you to sit down. So it wasn't too difficult for me from a personal perspective, but there were so many at FC United who'd been going for 30 or 40 years, season ticket holders, home and away, Europe, everywhere. It was a lot more difficult for them, and they were the ones at the forefront of the creation of the club, and they had to not only stop going to United, but spending all their time helping and create and helping to prop up this new club. So it was much harder for them. Me as a young fan who'd become disillusioned quite early with it all, it was less difficult because we ended up having such a good time in those early years, and it still gets talked about now. Like the first season, particularly, like the joy we were having following a club that was ours, and a club that had an old school United atmosphere that we'd created with like-minded Reds. It far outweighed the disappointment in many ways. Obviously, it was gut-wrenching sometimes to watch, because we were still watching United in the pubs. You can't get rid of it. You're watching a Red. It's for life. So, and we still, it's a catch-22. You want United to win, but you don't want the Glazers to be successful. But we were just like, it's United, so the love for United overrides dislike of the Glazers. But it was a really good time. But sometimes like I remember the 7-1 against Roma, topical. Yeah. I just remember sitting at home and thinking, God, I wish I was there for this one. There's a few like that. Yeah. But it really was terrific in the early years, and it still is.
It's a weird one with the Super League, because we had this feeling last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where all we do is talk about Manchester United. That's what we do, and I think that it got to a point. Probably Monday, Tuesday last week when this kind of all got announced, and it got to the point where everyone kind of went, "This isn't going to stop now. There's no way this is going to stop." And back of my mind, I still think that there'll be something else come around.
Of course.
And we all just kind of went, would you watch anymore? Because I think that the change in ownership, I think the fact that it was the same kind of, it's still playing for the Premier League, still playing in the first division of English football and all that kind of stuff, it still kind of had that feel. And I think a lot of fans still had that feel to it. But I think if you'd have had that Super League, because I think eventually that would have led to United not having the first team in the Premier League. I don't think that would have happened. I think most of us would kind of had that feeling last week that this is the end of us watching Manchester United completely. It's not just going to grounds, but I think people would have just tuned out. I think that this was the bigger feeling. I think that was that Man United fans the local Man United fans weren't going to even watch United anymore. It wasn't just going to be not going to the grounds and stuff and not doing that. It just wasn't going to be football anymore to go and watch. And that impact that was going to have all the way down to what that meant to other clubs in the Premier League or other clubs in the Football League was just, it was sickening. So to see a club like FC United, and we've been involved a little bit, been involved with Paddock FC with Steve stuff, and you know, being involved with lads that you get on with, and that kind of feel, you thought you were going to get away with Paddock FC stuff today without Howson.
They always bring up Paddock FC.
Always bring up Paddock FC.
Honestly, it drives me mad, George. Yeah, you know.
But at the same time, that you being involved in something and going and watching that kind of game does have a bit of a different feeling to watching Man United. You feel more connected to the footballers and the players because you know their story a bit more. It's a bit more relatable than what Manchester United has become now.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, you really do feel part of it. Yeah. Like when you're at FC, whether or not you volunteer just on the turnstiles or whether you're in the boardroom or selling half-time draw tickets, you know, you really feel an involvement in the club. Like, and, you know, the players come to the bar after the game. They're always approachable. You chat to them. They all get an introduction to the club when they arrive. Like the manager that we've got at the moment, Neil Reynolds, is terrific. Like he's really bought into the idea of the club, and you know the players are told straight away. You know, this is what we're about, and we're a fans club, and the connection to the fans is really, really important. So you have something. For us, it's like we created a model of what we think Manchester United should be. You know, like a club that cares about its local community, where you feel a connection, where you enjoy yourself week in, week out. And yeah, I've seen like Stretford Paddock FC. I know that they released a statement saying that they'd look into like a fan ownership model, which is great. You know, more fan owned clubs the better. Yep. Not sure there's room for 2 Manchester United fan owned clubs like with United fans, but you know. More power to you, Steve. Go for it.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. With what's been going on recently, George, and you've seen it all with obviously the Super League stuff, and there was a protest at the ground last weekend. There's going to be a protest this Sunday. You've been there yourself, protesting obviously with FC United. Do you think this could bring around change? Do you see anything different now, this time round, than you saw back in those days? I mean, you can be honest, mate. Right?
Yeah, like look, any anti-Glazer protest, whether it be now, whether it was 16 years ago, is valid, and I'm delighted to see it happening.
Yeah,
but yeah, I am a bit sceptical. I know what you were saying earlier about how it just felt different this time with like the European Super League. Who would bother going and watch it? It's just a load of glorified friendlies, essentially. So it did feel different, and the reaction to it, even though you know it. You obviously, you know, Gary Neville and everyone on Sky Sports, things like that, they're all saying the right things. But it is a little jarring to see them being held up as the heroes of you know, the against modern football movement, if you like. Because, you know, they couldn't have been quieter during those 16 years, and Neville particularly even, you know, defended the Glazers on some occasions. So when Sky, it does feel like it was great to see the fan protest, not just at United, but the fans of the other 5 clubs, and to actually bring about change. But it felt as if people were doing it because Sky Sports were telling them to be angry, rather than actual anger themselves. And like, yeah, I'm glad that they used their platform to get rid of it. But yeah, it was just a little like when we've been, you know, ridiculed and told how wrong we are, and you know the Glazers aren't that bad for the last 16 years. For then to, by some of the people speaking out now, it's just well, okay. So and with regards to the protest now, I do see a similarity. Like it feels. I don't know if you remember the protest against the Glazers just before they took over again, before the Milan Champions League game in 2005. It was a huge one.
Yeah.
It was like 20, 30,000 people. And I'm hearing numbers like 10,000 coming down on Sunday. So it all feels very similar. And I remember thinking when FC United formed, we're going to be massive. We're going to have 20, 30,000 fans because all these people have joined Shareholders United to try and block the Glazers. They're all going to come along, and they've all said they're not going to go when the Glazers take over. And a lot of people just kind of shrugged and went, oh, well, there's nothing we can do now. They're taking over the club, but it's still United. I'm just going to carry on. And I worried that would be the case with the Super League. You know, I thought once the ball got rolling and the clubs pulled out and they said, this is happening, and the first game of the Super League rolled round, I just remember thinking, everybody's just going to do the same like in 2005. I'm very happy, though, to see that that's not been the case and that they've stopped it.
Yeah, completely agree. We're going to have a quick break there for a little advertising. Cameron, can you roll that for us? The Howson Brew podcast is sponsored by Manscaped. Manscaped is the leader in men's below-the-waist grooming. Did you know that, Jay?
No, well, I did actually.
You did know
because
that.
I've come to realise that they are.
They are the best.
For a reason, because they're the best.
And they're now available in the USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the EU. Everywhere, Manscaped now. And you can use the code Howson20 to get 20% off free shipping at manscaped.com. Jay, did you know one guy every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? So this is a reminder to all men listening to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
That was the most uncanny Ice Cube impersonation I've ever seen. I thought I was sat with half of NWA there. No, joking aside though, yeah, it's serious. You got to check yourself, haven't you? Yeah. And it's good that they're reminding us of that as well. And obviously, Manscaped, in addition to providing the right tools and solutions for safe and easy manscaping, they've partnered up with the Testicular Cancer Society to spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection, because obviously you need to look after yourself, guys. You need to check yourself down there, make sure everything's okay. Yep. So together, TCS and Manscaped are committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors and families impacted by testicular cancer as part of their We Save Balls initiative. And even though I've not been 35 for a good few weeks, I do adhere to that policy of checking myself.
Make sure you check yourself. So whilst you're down there cleaning up your sack with the Manscaped 3.0.
The 3.0, that lawnmower technology.
3.0.
Hey, come on. You know it makes sense.
Give them a little investigation for lumps, changes in size or any pain. I think we can all agree it's pretty fun playing with your balls. Anyway, that is the read. Thank you, Manscaped.
That was a serious type read there. And it's like, okay, usually the Manscaped ones are a bit jovial. We have a little bit of a giggle. Very serious. And then it goes, looking all the great, it's quite good checking your balls, isn't it?
Yeah. So in addition to checking yourself regularly, you want to make sure your sack is looking fresh and clean with the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Inside the Perfect Package, you'll get all of their amazing products, including some liquid formulations that only use the best ingredients. They've got the Crop Preserver, the Anti-Chafing Deodorant, the Crop Reviver, a spray-on ball toner and refresher. The Perfect Package 3.0 also includes the anti-chafing boxes, which are very, very good, by the way, that keep your package cool and feeling fresh. Ronaldo Brown does love the boxes from Manscaped.
Your boxes, or he's got his own?
He's got his own ones. Everyone's got them in the office. No, we don't share. No. So join the Manscaped movement and start taking care of your balls today. So get 20% off 20%. And free shipping using Howson20 at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job. So get 20% off, free shipping with code Howson20. That's HOWSON20 at manscaped.com.
Link in the description. Yes. T's and C's applies. Do look after yourself, check yourself, and get involved. Thanks for those messages. We've got a super chat in from DChan87. It says, if the Glazers do sell, should we be worried that someone much worse than them could buy United? Was that a concern, George? Is that something? Because that is the sort of question. You go, oh, well, if the Glazers sold, then maybe, a royal family from the Middle East may take us over, which has its own moral conundrum, shall we say, because then it's like, okay, you're swapping bad businessmen or greedy businessmen for what could be, people trying to distract from a murderous regime, for example. Is that sort of something you think about, or we should?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much more I can add to what I've just said there, because you're absolutely right. Like, who on earth can actually afford to buy United from the Glazers? It's probably a Middle Eastern consortium with their own human rights allegations. I think we've got enough of that in Manchester, haven't we?
Well said.
Yeah. So it would just be, it's a difficult one. But at the same time, you never know what's going to come out. I don't know how realistic the Red Knights campaign is. I know I have seen a statement from them in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that's a realistic thing. But I mean, it's a difficult one, because who is morally better, because only billionaires, only another billionaire or a consortium of millionaires will probably be able to afford United in that respect. So what is the answer?
I think that's the thing. There's a lot of comments in here about the petition just hit 100k, which is for to legislate the 50+1 coming in, or to at least have a discussion in Parliament, which is looking likely to way to go. I mentioned this at the start. I think that for me, the one reason that this has a little bit of legs now is that it's not just Manchester United fans, because I think that what everyone has asked for in the last few years, especially as a lot of people as United fans, is just get the Glazers out, get someone else in. And we talked about the worst possible thing of getting someone else from a country with human rights violations and stuff. That's the other option. I think that the good thing about this is you've got almost like the likes of Liverpool, whose owners have done well and invested in the club and have actually improved them as a football team, are also getting called out in all this. Because I think that's a little bit of all this, is that City fans have gone quiet very quickly this week. It was all involved last week. We want them out and stuff like that. We wanted to change and stuff. But then Champions League semi-final comes around and they're like, that's more important.
Because City were the first club to pull out. They're clinging to this, we're the ones who destroyed it by pulling out. They're literally saying this. I'm getting messages from Blues going, you're welcome. And it's like, come on, no. You make any excuses for Sheikh Mansour, don't you? So it's
and this
ridiculous.
Is the whole thing, is that I don't think buying the club is the possibility. I don't think that anyone's going to be able to afford. I don't think it's going to come out, and I don't think there's a benefit on us. I think this 50+1 thing, I don't know how much you know about that in terms of the German model. Is that similar to how you see things being run, similar to what you guys did at FC United, or what's the kind of...
Well, the 50+1 model, it's very popular in like Germany, for example, and it's more to do with voting rights rather than anything else. And it's infinitely preferable to what we've got. Yeah. But in order for it to really happen, it would likely have to be government legislation. And without getting too political, I'm not too sure if the government we've got at the moment are very interested in handing things back to the public from private business owners. So it's a bit of a stretch to rely on that. But you mentioned the petition. It is very refreshing that that's got to 100k, so it will get discussed in Parliament. We're heading towards that. But then at FC United, for example, we're not 50+1, we're 50+50. It's 100% fan owned, and that's essentially what we would like ideally for most clubs. And I think it's achievable at a lot of clubs, certainly in the lower leagues outside of the Premier League. Because Portsmouth had it for a while, Swansea City, Notts County, all of those became fan owned clubs, and eventually voted to sell parts of the club at least to private business owners. And obviously we'll just look at how well AFC Wimbledon have done over the last few years as well, getting all the way to League One, overtaking the franchise that they... So it's fantastic. It's a fantastic working model, and there is proof that it can work, and that 100% ownership of your club is possible. It's more to do with the lower leagues, but it's... The one thing fans really should, United or otherwise, should really take this as an opportunity to try and get more influence in their boardrooms, whether it's just one guy on the board, whether it's 100% fan ownership, whether it's signing petitions, whether it's getting towards a 50+1 model. Anything to get more support and representation in the boardrooms is vital more now than it's ever been.
On that front, George, we know that today there was a fans forum at Manchester United where some of the representatives from the fans groups who meet with the club spoke to, I think it was like an online call. Ed Woodward was on it. Amazingly, none of the Glazers were on it,
really,
which I know is going to be a massive shock, especially on the on the back of Joe Glazer's completely heartfelt and original apology that he wrote himself the other day. But they were calling for some of the things he spoke about. I'll just quickly mention some of the things that were they've handed this letter from the fans forum, from these fan groups to the owners via the club, and they've called for sort of 5 requests within the next 7 days. No, not within the next 7 days. Given these 5 requests, you've got 7 days to respond. So they're calling for the club to willingly and openly engage, promote the government-initiated fan-led review of football, and use this as an opportunity to rebalance the current ownership structure in favour of supporters and not approach this review defensively or to fight the status quo. Or to fight for the status quo, appoint independent directors to the board whose sole purpose is to protect the interest of the club as a football club, not its shareholders, and not focus on profits over results. Work with the United Supporters Trust and supporters more broadly to put in place a share scheme that is accessible to all and that has shares with the same voting rights as those held by the Glazer family. Commit to full consultation with season ticket holders on any significant changes to the club, including the competitions we play in. Obviously, a nod there to the European Super League. And also, the final one is for Joel Glazer or the Glazer family to provide a commitment that any costs incurred in relation to the creation or withdrawal from the Super League will be funded solely by the Glazer family and not by the club itself. We know that the Kroenke family have already made this commitment to Arsenal fans. So there's like a list of demands there, and you've been here before, seeing these sort of things with the owners. Do you have any faith that you can get a response, or not you personally, but the club will act?
I mean, no, not really.
Yeah.
I think it's great that these demands are being put forward, and I hope that things do happen. It's good to see must have woken up to the threat of the Glazers again. So I'm not going to oppose any of that. It's good that those things are being talked about. But yeah, I know, in the last few years, the Glazers have. I know that they've softened to a degree. They listen to the TRA with regards to more atmosphere in Old Trafford, like the rail seats being put in and things like that. So I'm a little more optimistic now, particularly after the absolute humiliation of the Glazers and the owners of the other clubs over the last few weeks, that they will want to win back the trust and support of United fans. I don't know if it's too late for that. Probably is. It's never even been on the cards for myself to trust them, but I think there is a chance, and they really, because as I say, supporters really do have an advantage at this moment in time, so they really need to hammer home what their demands are, and to find out practical, pragmatic ways of actually implementing them.
Do you feel like as well? Do you think that the thing about the Glazers, especially in the past, probably the last 10 years, has been more directed around how much they spend on transfers? And do you think that's kind of been the way it's been framed, is that the Glazers aren't any good because we're not getting backed, as in buying players? And I think that's kind of been the whole marketing campaign of getting them out, is that we're not spending enough money, that's why we're not competing. Do you think that this whole Super League thing has kind of highlighted the bigger problem with them, is the fact that they're not caring about the atmosphere in the ground, they're not caring about the local fans, they're not caring about what happens here, irrelevant of how good United are on the football pitch? They're not, for as much as they want that and they're going to try and do that or whatever they're going to do, they're not even bothered about the fans being able to go to the games, the fans having that connection at all. Even if they stopped investing in the team altogether and said, look, we're going to cut things back, I think that they're not bothered about the local fan at all. It's more a global thing, and they've shown that in the last few weeks, rather than it being. And I think that there's a lot of fans that got behind the Glazers Out movement because of investment on the football pitch, rather than the overall fear of this corporate takeover of English football.
Well, yeah, I mean, I first came on this channel when there was the hashtag Unfollow Man United campaign.
Yeah,
to just block out United on social media, which didn't work very well.
No,
but again,
it's like we had a load of people. We asked people to send in our videos for that, and by the time they sent them all in, it finished.
Yeah,
it died.
And it was because United were going through a barren run at the time, and it's happened. I'm pretty sure the Green and Gold campaign, which a lot of people think was us at FC United, had nothing to do with us, because it was 5 years after we formed. a lot of that came about around the time United weren't doing too well. So yeah, a lot of people who've got #Glazers Out on their Twitter profiles are just unhappy that we've not signed Mbappe essentially. So it does seem like. It does seem a little false. It's nothing to do with the integrity and the history of Manchester United that they're upset about. It's more to do with the sale of players or how we're doing on the pitch, and those things in the grand scheme of things, they don't matter. You know, we're United fans, so what happens on the pitch is secondary to what is happening at the club. At least that's how I feel. And I mean, the Glazers have never cared, obviously, about. They've never cared too much about whether it's the atmosphere or the general feel that you get from United. It's all to do with profit margins. It's all to do about making money, and they'll only make those concessions if they see something in it for themselves. But at the same time, that doesn't make them very different to the Edwards family and to the people who were and to David Gill and to the people who were in charge of Manchester United, which allowed them to become this monolith that was bought by the Glazers. So they're not too different in that respect. But this is what we were saying 16 years ago. They're never going to care about you as the fan. They're only going to care about themselves. They're not football people, and they're just going to try and milk us for everything they've got. And the ACS, the automatic cup scheme, was when you have to buy the cup tickets if you've got a season ticket. Like that for me was the epitome of what they were about. And they've not changed. No,
I remember. Yeah, the automatic cup scheme was. I think it was sitting in against FC Cluj when there was about 10,000 fans there because we had to be. I'm just going to go through some of the comments. RH Elite Coaching in the comments, he says, "Fuck the Glazers." Up the RH.
Quite right.
Yeah. Shane Tomlinson makes a great point. They've been neglected Old Trafford. Old Trafford. Yeah, don't get me started on that. It needs more than a lick of paint. Dwayne Scott says George's voice is amazing. What else I've missed? There's a couple there as well. They are selfish and will never understand the community, which is just exactly what you were saying there. Also, Niall Keane says, this is quality. George speaks very well. Great to hear his perspective. You spoke earlier, George, and Baggers brought up as well about fans, not just United fans. When this was all popping off in 2005, obviously you guys were almost on your own. We've seen a little bit of other clubs' involvement. Do you think we'll ever get to a movement in this country where there's a bit of solidarity? Because it's almost fallen apart already. This I know. Within 4 days, we had like these 6 clubs and these fans, and it was like and another City and Scousers and United and all this coming together, and then 3 days later it's like, nah, you know what? Like Baggers was saying, we're in a Champions League semi-final, we're all right.
It's difficult enough to bring together United fans, let alone like fans of 6 clubs competing with each other. So, it's not a surprise, but you talk to fans of those clubs, like at the top 6 and the so-called Big 6, and we do have more in common than we think in many ways. It's frightening how much in common we've got with the Scousers in some ways.
Do you know what? It's true. We don't like to admit it, but I got asked this very question the other day. Did something with a beer, and they were like, some people would say you got a lot in common, and when you start thinking about it, you think, all right, let's move on. Let's not dwell on that topic. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like, and we can all be guilty, not yourself because you actually took a stand, but I think a lot of football fans in general can be guilty of it. If things are going well on the pitch, it's difficult to mobilise the fan base. That's just almost the nature of the beast. And I think, if you look at, especially with City, what they've gone through, where they were 20 years ago and what they are now, and even the Scousers, winning the first title in 30 years, I think a lot of it just seems to stem from what is going on the pitch for a lot of people. I know not yourself, but for a lot of people, it's like if things are going well on the pitch, people don't tend to get too angry.
No. And it seems to be. One thing that I noticed, like the fan protest, which helped to quash the Super League, like that was a refreshing change from the English football fan mentality. I thought, like if you look at it in Germany, regardless of how successful, like look at Bayern Munich, for example. I don't know how many Bundesligas they've won in a row now, but they're still unhappy about the investment from Qatar and the Middle East, and they're still holding up banners saying it's not what they want. There's still protests, even though that even though it's a success, and there's fan movements in Germany where they boycott the games. All the fans, all the match-going fans will boycott based on games being shown on Monday nights. Which is
fair enough. Credit to him for that.
Absolutely, but at the same time, it seems like a minor issue compared to whatever everything else is. But credit to him for protesting against that sort of thing. But it is refreshing to see that there does seem to be a lot more fan mobilisation in this country, because it didn't seem to be the case. I don't know. I didn't see much footage of Italian fans or Spanish fans being against it as much as the English fans. So it was refreshing to see us take that continental approach, if you like.
Yeah, we spoke to a Spanish football expert, Semra Hunter, who's over in Spain, and she was saying that in terms of Madrid in particular, like a lot of the Madrid fans were all right with it. Like we all looked at Florentino Perez and his interviews and thought he's completely lost the plot, and they were like, you know what, we're kind of with him. And then the Barcelona were just in a right pickle financially. We're like, and Atletico, I think, were a bit more against it, but not to the level. She was saying that there's not seen anything like over there what we're seeing over here, like you just said. In the super chat, Devon Sharma says, fans in India are pleading for Mukesh Ambani to take over United. He's the richest man in Asia, worth approximately 90 billion, and owns a successful IPL team. I don't know a lot about that person. No. He's worth 90 billion. Again, is this just the only answer? Another billionaire? Is that the answer to all our problems? I don't know.
It really no is the answer.
Yeah, well there you go. Yeah,
because I mean, even Paul Scholes, with no sense of irony, was touching on it yesterday. He works with Peter Lim, doesn't he?
I was about to say Peter Lim owns, like, for those who don't know, Peter Lim is a billionaire. I think he owns. Is it like a big stake in Salford City?
Yeah, it's 60%. 40%, I believe. Yeah. And the others own 10% each, the six from class of '92. But he also owns Valencia. Yeah, and they want him gone because Peter Lim, because they don't believe he gets what it's about. He's a reclusive billionaire from Singapore. He doesn't get what Valencia is. And they've been selling off a load of their players during the COVID lockdowns just to try and make ends meet, and they really want him gone. And there's Paul Scholes on BT going, billionaire owners from other countries don't get what it is to be football fans. Yeah, you're right, mate. Perhaps have a word at your next board meeting.
I mean, that is the ultimate sense of irony when you look at it. Didn't Peter haven't Valencia had both the Neville brothers there as well as managers?
Yeah, the 2015. Phil Neville came in as a coach at Valencia. Gary Neville, with no managerial experience, he couldn't speak Spanish, got the job. I mean, you can't talk about nepotism. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean about how jarring it is to see Neville and Scholes talking about this, as right as they are, and I'm as glad as I am that they're speaking out. They need to do certain things themselves. Working for Sky Sports isn't doing football much good.
No.
Working with billionaires like Peter Lim, who you were actively criticising, isn't it going to solve the problem? So what are you going to do yourselves in order to change that? So football in general and people speaking out need to look at themselves as well.
Because that's it. The billionaire owners, whether it comes into Manchester United or whatever, whoever takes over, they're not just going to do it for the love of it. They're going to do it to try and make money, and there's been so many times these owners really struggle. I know it sounds mad. They struggle to make a lot of money off for the amount of money they invest in. A lot of times, City owners haven't taken that much money out because there isn't that much there in terms of profit. It's a long way down the line. And I think people need to understand that the change in this to get it right would need to be a massive step back in terms of football, in terms of how much money is in the top levels of the game. I think that this is all built up to this position. It's all built up to the reason that these owners want to do it is because fans have been demanding more and more players, and they want these superstar players, and they want this. But to do that, you need to guarantee money, and that's the one thing the Glazers have been trying to do for years, is guarantee their income. They've taken the percentage of how much they earn on a match day was something around 50 to 60% of that's how much United made, and that was in 2009. It's now down to something like 20, 25, 30%. Most of it's off commercial stuff like that. They want to just reduce that completely, where they go, match day means nothing. Doesn't matter where we're finishing the league. We're going to make money elsewhere. And therefore, we'll be able to sign Mbappe. Yeah, we'll spend £150 million on a player because we can do that. I think there's people, it's the overall look of it. People need to understand that it's not just going to be a billionaire that comes in and does it. I think that the 50+1 would be a help, because at least fans would have that point to say, look, we don't want to join a Super League. why don't you have a thought about investing in the stadium for people that go every week? Why don't you have a thought about investing in the local community and things like that?
There's a good point.
Miles has just
go on. If you want to read out
Miles
what
has just put a
said.
super chat in here. Wouldn't our owners invest in more in the local area, a la City's owners, sports washing, do more for their public image than hiring Neil Ashton? And so that's the kind of thing, is they're looking at, maybe the way City fans are looking at, the City can look at it at the minute, is that the investment into local areas. But for me, that's just
sports washing, as you just said.
Sports washing, that's all it is.
Sports washing, and is that all above board, and is that all a great? I mean, I know East Manchester, wherever near the Etihad, they've spent a lot of money around there, but then there's a lot of property being bought up in the city centre. Is that helping the local people, community?
Right. And it's not like, I mean, I lived right near Clayton for a while, and you could walk down a street in Clayton and see the Etihad in the distance, and you're in a street of boarded up houses.
Yeah.
So to see that wealth in an area of such poverty, they're not actually doing as much for that local area as people think. And yet the questions need to be asked about where that money's coming from.
Yeah.
And why Manchester City Council are happy to accept it all the time.
Manchester City Council just keep going along with it, don't they? I mean, especially around the city centre, a lot of the areas around here as well. That's not coming back into this community, is it? And it's a bit of a myth, and it's easy to go, well, they're investing in the area and the help in the area. I don't think they are, especially long term as well. Because what about affordable housing for people? What about things like that? Is that happening? I don't think it is. Yeah. From what I gather, I mean, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like you're just putting up, you building houses for more rich people. We're getting some more of the comments. Ronan Earl says, Alex, the beautiful bastard, looking very well today.
Thank you.
Someone else saying, looking at Blackburn Rovers, I wouldn't want an Indian billionaire to take over and buy United. There was obviously issues with the Venkies there.
Yeah, God.
It was like, do you remember that with all sorts of shenanigans that went on there, wasn't there? It was just
nightmare, yeah. And they're still there, aren't they?
So. I remember I used to cover Blackburn, and it was I can't remember, they appointed some guy who was like their spokesperson, and he held a fans forum where he was basically like, he was drunk, he was just slagging off Steve Keane and like making all these jokes. And Steve Keane was the manager. Someone put their hands up and went, I've got no experience, I drink too much. Can I have a job as a football manager? And he went, I'm sorry, that position's already taken. And everyone was laughing. And this was the guy who was in charge of, he's like the CEO or whatever he was called. It was just a mess. So yeah, be careful what you wish for, as we've been saying. Yeah. Do you think Tom says, do you think the Glazers care about protests? As lockdown has proven, they don't even need fans to make money. I mean, this is the question. I mean, I know we keep asking this, George, and it's like, do the Glazers care about the protests? Do you think that has any effects? But you sort of touched on it earlier about the fact that as a fan as well, you always want to protest, don't you? You want to do something and voice your opinion. You've done the ultimate.
As a person in general, like whether it be football or life, protests are there as a visible form of opposition. So as I said earlier, any protest is valid. I still stick to that. They're right. They were right in the sense that a lot of owners are seeing what's happening during COVID and seeing no fans in the stadium but still making money. That's not necessarily true for Real and Barca. That's one of the reasons that they wanted to move away and make money elsewhere. But it does, it feels like because we're so used to seeing empty stadiums now. If a boycott like we were calling for of Old Trafford when the Glazers took over, if that actually happened, would it have much of an effect?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you feel? Because I worry about this. I think that would be like the ultimate boycott. Is right. We're just not going to go. Like, let's galvanise everyone and just say, right, we're not going and setting foot. But then, are they going to insulate? Are they at the point where they can insulate themselves and that's it?
It's not going to last forever. Like the idea that they're going to make money regardless without stadium revenue. That's not true. They are going to, and they're businessmen who want as much money as they can. So they're going to be upset once we're allowed fans in again, and if those fans don't turn up. So I would still be in favour of any kind of boycott or any kind of movement which withholds your money from the Glazer family, because that's what it's about. That's what they care about. That's why we formed FC United, to withhold our money from the Glazers and make their business plan fail. And if they're seeing ways of making revenue and not doing it, at the moment they can't have fans in, but when they allowed fans in and nobody's going, that will annoy them, and they may reconsider about their future as owners of United.
Do you think that this protest, we're looking at it as a protest against the Glazers and stuff like that, and it is, but they may ignore it and they may do that. Do you think this protest is probably a bit more important because of, it's almost a protest to show this petition's just gone through, this has just done that it's more to the government and going, look, there's 10,000 forget football fans, 10,000 people in your country here, this is a massive part of their community that still aren't happy. It doesn't matter how well they're doing on the football pitch, they aren't happy with what's going on. And do you think this protest is more to not just show the Glazers, but to show the government almost this is what you need to do?
Yeah, I think United can speak for a lot of football fans in this regard. And I think it's important to certainly at this moment in time when it's still fresh in the minds of football fans what they tried to do with the European Super League. So while it's still in the news, while people are still talking about it, get out there and make your opposition visible and make your anger visible, and take your cans home. We're not Scousers. Take your cans home.
We're not Scousers. Isn't an appropriate message. There is a protest, as we said, at Old Trafford this Sunday. So if you're able to get down there, voice your opposition. Just before we go, George, tell us a little bit about FC United, where people can get involved. I know that obviously the games are on hold at the minute, but people can still get involved.
Yeah, like you guys are doing. We can become a co-owner of FC United for £15 a year. You get votes. You get it's one member, one vote. You can vote at two. We have 2 general meetings a year where you can vote on resolutions, members' votes. You can even vote on what kit we have. We vote on everything that affects the club. And if you want to get a membership, just go to our website and we follow us on social media. We're on everywhere. We're everywhere at the moment. Season tickets are only £150. We sell 10 match ticket books as well, so you don't have to buy a full season ticket. And just get involved, because it's any United fan is welcome at FC, and you'll love it because the atmosphere is terrific and you're with like-minded Reds.
Absolutely.
We'll
get the link.
Sounds like the way it should be.
We'll
put a link in the description there, so make sure you go check out FC United. And even if you're not able to get to the games or not, you can support them. Like George said, you can get involved and sort of follow them on social media and check out all the updates there, so make sure you are supporting them as well. We're going to be down there on Sunday. We're also going to have all the build-up to playing the Scousers, aren't we? almost forget this weekend. We've got a Liverpool game, haven't we?
We had Leeds, Roma and Scousers, and it's just...
Yeah, it's like an afterthought. George, thanks for coming on. It's great chatting
problem.
to you. We'll have to have you on again, mate, because it's always a pleasure. You've been on a few times, and it's always good listening to what you've got to say. And obviously, it's always relevant, but even more so now with what's going on over the past 2 weeks. So check out FC United. Check out Alex Baggers on all socials. You know where to find me. Don't forget as well to hit like, share, and subscribe. This has been Howson's Brew. Thanks for watching.